Alright, finally getting around to doing something with the gooseberries that we harvested earlier. It's kind of tedious, and it's nice to have multiple hands to harvest. You can get more volume than doing it by yourself. So I wasn't able to harvest as much as I'd like this season. Other seasons will come, hopefully, and I will be able to harvest and do more recipes. But for now, I'm going to start off with preserves. So I think preservation is it's very important, especially nowadays, to have some extra foodstuffs to fall back on in case things go from bad to worse. And so we're going to try two different preserves. One is a non-cooked preserve, and another one is going to be a cooked preserve. So let's see. Since the cooked preserve is going to take basically 2 days. It's going to take overnight. We're going to start with this one. So I've got a cup of the gooseberries that we harvested, and what we need is a cup of the gooseberries here. Just put that in the bowl here like that, and then it'll be 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And I haven't used honey with it yet. I'm just trying this recipe out for the first time, so we'll see what happens. But we're just going to use refined sugar this time around. And 3/4 of a cup. Let's see. Let's see. This will be accurate. We'll just do. We got a 1/4 cup here. We'll just do that 3 times. And then it's a third 1/4 of a cup. Like that. And what we want to do is have that sit. We'll kind of mix this around a little bit, and then we're going to have this sit overnight. And you probably have it sit overnight in the refrigerator. I think I'm going to try this, have this sit overnight outside of the refrigerator. I'll just cover it with some saran wrap or something like that. So while we're waiting for this to do what it needs to do, we can set this aside. And then now we have some a half a cup because the rest of the gooseberries that I have I want to use for another recipe. Because basically harvested just 2 cups. So anyways, a half a cup of the gooseberries here. This is going to be our non-cooked preserve. Alright, gooseberries already have pectin in it. Okay, so you don't need to add extra pectin, which is what gives it the gel for jelly or preserves, jams, and that sort of thing. Alright, so gooseberries already come equipped with their own pectin, so we don't need to add any pectin to this. And then we're going to smash these up, and this was a half a cup of sugar, or gooseberries. And then I just kind of want to smash these. And there's probably an easier way to do this, like a rolling pin. So I can kind of grab a rolling pin here. And I'm just going to kind of smash these up. These crush with a satisfying pop. Kind of like bubble wrap. I'm just feeling to make sure that these are thoroughly mashed up and there's no old ones in there. Okay. So that was a half a cup of gooseberries that we have here for our no-cook preserves. And so I'm going to use a half a cup of sugar. So the ratio is 1 to 1. So let's see here. We use half a cup. I hate the way these sounds. They make so much noise. People are still sleeping in my household. Let me double check. Half a cup. Yep, it's half a cup. Let's set this aside so I can open this correctly. I'm going to go ahead and just add this to that, and we're going to mix it together. Kind of mash it together like this. Okay, so it's pretty easy recipe. So we'll just be doing the same thing. And this will dissolve over time. The sugar will. It's kind of grainy in there. A little bit down my finger. That's actually pretty good. It's tasty. Alright, so what I have here, let this kind of sit, solidify a little bit. Move my tools. Okay, I've got some jars here that I'm going to put the preserves in. I probably did too many for the amount of reserves that I have, but anyways, basically sterilizing them, just boiling them in water, and then I'm going to take them out and let them sit and air dry, and then I'm going to put the preserves in, the no-cook preserves in one of the jars, and we should be good to go. Alright, so in my previous video on gooseberries, I forgot to mention that there might be a toxic or poisonous look-alike. I've had these, I've seen these on the trails, I've eaten these plenty of times. This species, I recognize the plant, I know the plant. I have a relationship with the plant. I usually just eat them as a trail kind of nibble when I come across them, you know, when I'm just hedge bothering. Shout out to Sally Pointer. When I'm just out there poking around in the bushes and the woods and stuff. But the poisonous look-alike is called a sticky current. And it's more or less toxic. It'll just kind of make you sick, depending on your body chemistry. But it's labeled as poisonous. I will put additional information below. Be sure to check that out. Make sure when you're foraging you know exactly what you're doing. If you don't, if you're nervous about certain things like that, find somebody in your area that knows about the wild edibles and the wild plants, medicinal plants in your area. We're in the information age. It shouldn't be too hard to find somebody near you. Alright, so we have our no cook preserves here, and what we're going to do is we're going to transfer, hopefully without making a mess, transfer this bunch here into one of these jars here, which I've just sterilized. Now I'll probably eat this right away. Sterilization for your preserves is best for when you're going to do long-term storage. Make sure no bacteria or anything like that gets into the jars or into your foodstuffs to cause them to spoil or develop botulism or whatever. So it's highly recommended that you do sterilize your jars, containers, for long-term storage. So I'm going to take a little bit here, give this a little bit of a taste. It looks good. The skins of the gooseberries are really kind of chewy, but we'll see what happens over time. But it actually is really good for a spread for toast or making toaster pastries, you know, Pop-Tarts, that sort of thing. Let me go ahead and transfer this in here. Alright, so I'm going to label these. Make sure you label and date your concoctions so you know what they are later on. And then you know how good they are based on the date. And then that's about it. This is an easy, pretty straightforward and easy recipe. And it actually tastes really good right off the bat. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for the other batch that we have here. To, I guess, macerate overnight, and then we're going to make a cooked version of the preserves. By the way, as a side note, I mashed the gooseberries for the no-cook preserve portion of the gooseberries in this Ziploc bag, and there's a lot of leftover residue of the sugar and the berries in there, and I add a little bit of water, I'm gonna add some ice to this. This is gonna be really tasty. Yeah, definitely. So just as a side note, and it helps me not waste so much of the gooseberry mash. Alrighty, so it's the next day, and here is our gooseberry and sugar mix here that's been sitting overnight, and it's a little thick to boil, okay? And I'm following a recipe from an older book, and I believe they might have forgot to say add some water, because I know if this starts to boil, it'll just cook. It'll start to bubble, it'll make a mess. And so I'm going to take about the same ratio of sugar to water, so it's about 3/4 of a cup here of water, and then I'm going to take a mash, my potato masher, and I want to start to break up the berries. So we could have done this in a plastic bag, but this will also help release pectins in the cooking process. But I'm just going to try to smash these up a little bit. They'll also pop again once it starts to boil. Alright, I've got my pot ready here. I've got it on medium heat, and I'm going to go ahead and just add my mash to this mixture here. Get all the sugar in there. We'll get this to boil in. And then over here, this will be coming to a boil here soon. And this, I'm just sterilizing some more jars in case I need them. Alright, I've got our berry mixture boiling for about 5 minutes under medium heat. We'll take this and turn this off. I'm going to let it cool down. And as it cools down, I'm expecting it to kind of solidify, because apparently gooseberries produce their own pectin, which is the jellifying component when you make jams or jellies and such things, and other preserves like that. You actually have to add an extra additive to it, or another type of fruit that contains pectin. So gooseberries apparently contain pectin. So hopefully this will solidify for us. We'll let this cool down a bit, and then once our jars are sterilized, then we'll transfer them to the jars. Give it a taste, and then transfer to the jars. Alright, our gooseberry preserves have been boiled down. I just let them cool down a bit so I can transfer them to our jars here. Excuse me. Transfer them to our jars here. If I was going to do this for long-term storage, I'd create a water bath once I have put these in the jars with the flat caps on, the canning jars here. And then let them go in a water bath for about 10 minutes, and then seal them. Wait till the seal sucks in, and then you know you can store it for a longer period of time. After you open it, you should refrigerate it once you've done using it. I may or may not do that depending on how much this yields. So I'm just going to spoon this out into the jars here. So nothing spectacular here, just putting them in the jars. And there it is. So all done. Dishing these out. One little lonely gooseberry can go on one of these. Set this aside. Now this mixture tends to be very sticky, so be careful getting it on things you don't want it to stick to. Alright, so this yielded four 4-ounce jelly jars, and yeah, so there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and cap and label these, and that's pretty much all she wrote. Like I said, for longer term storage, you probably want to give these a water bath. Basically seal them and then let them sit into some boiling water for about 10 minutes. They don't need to be submerged. You're just kind of about halfway here. For about 10 minutes. Then take them out of the water bath, set them aside until the little divot here on the canning jars here suck in, and that way you know it's permanently sealed and you can store it for a longer period of time, year, maybe 2 years. I know my great grandmother used to do a lot of canning, and you know, she'd have preserves that taste, peach preserves that taste really good, and I don't know how long they've been down in her basement, but they came out just as fresh and tasted just as good. So never got botulism or anything like that, but you know, she was my great grandmother, lived through the Great Depression and all that, so she knew how to do things. Anyways, yeah, I hope this works out for you if you choose to try it. And there's plenty, tons and tons and tons and tons. Anything you can do with a berry, you can do with gooseberries. Just make sure you top and tail them so you don't have a bunch of twigs coming out from your teeth.